Welcome everyone to our Middle Leaders Leading Change webinar. And this is around using a coaching approach to support our Stepping Stones colleagues. So these are teachers in their first 4 years post-probation. So we're absolutely delighted that you volunteered to take part in this programme. And this is just roughly an hour-long webinar to support you with your professional learning. You won't become a fully fledged coach at the end of this, but hopefully you'll learn how to use a coaching approach. You'll learn a little bit about mentoring and how you can support your colleagues online. You will have probably taken part in the first onboarding session with Know You More, or at least listened to a recording for that. And you may well have also taken part in the second onboarding. So hopefully now you're ready to start. And there will be details sent out to you about how you sign up and how you become a coach on this programme. So as I said, this is just to support your professional learning. And I'd like to introduce Yvonne Mccracken, who will take you through the slides. Yvonne, over to you.
Thank you, Louise, and welcome everyone. I'm delighted to be involved, and thank you for that introduction, Louise. And I think actually the image there showing potential sums up really what we're trying to do here, is about trying to release people's potential, and we hope that this will be very helpful to you in a tremendous role that you're taking on. So before starting the session, can you please, you may need to pause the recording to do this, but either have a journal there or a recording device of some kind. Quite good to have a written thing, some paper, as there will be quite a number of opportunities during the session to reflect and record your thinking. Pause. So hopefully you've all got sorted with that, and let's just go through now what we aim to cover during this session. So starting as usual with, well, why are we doing this? Why coaching? So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about what is coaching and what is not coaching. And within that, we'll be looking at the coaching mentoring spectrum, which you'll be working from one to the other really, and sometimes in the middle, I'm sure, as well. We'll then go on to just looking briefly at what are the 3 elements of effective coaching programs. And within that, we look at the ways of being, how we are as a coach or a mentor, the coaching skills that are needed. And we hope and expect that these are skills that you're well on the way with, but there are some distinctive aspects of that that are very useful for the coaching and mentoring process. And then the coaching process itself, which is about the arrangements, that the confidentiality, how often you're going to meet, the model you'll use, and we will talk a bit about the GROW model later, just as a starter program for you. And then Louise, I think, will come in at the end just to talk about, okay, so with all of that, where next for you? So next slide. So why coaching? Well, we're going to ask you to take a few minutes to consider for yourself, for your own learning, and record the reasons why coaching can support your own professional learning at this time, and how it can and should support teachers in the first 4 years of their career. So before we say any more, we're going to pause and just let you think about, for you, why coaching at this time? How is it going to help you in your own professional learning? How will it help you in this role supporting other teachers? Pause. So just before we go on to, in fact, I'll go back to that slide. Should we be meeting as a sort of live session, then the kinds of responses that we get to why coaching tend to be around the resilience that it brings for people, whether that is physical, mental, social, emotional, particularly in this present climate of uncertainty, as we'll all be very aware of at the moment. And that's around empowerment, empowering people just to add that discretionary 10% effort. And through coaching, mentoring, Often, and sometimes surprisingly to yourself as a coach, you can uncover hidden strengths and weaknesses, and people uncover that themselves by your questioning and your listening skills. The new insights that can be brought is often some of the answers around why coaching, new perspectives on everyday responsibilities, nudging, pushing to get an improvement in areas that are maybe bugging us a bit. The freeing up your thinking, opening your thinking, enhancing performance. So there's a very clear relationship in the literature between coaching, mentoring, and improved performance. And that is often to do with a difference in attitude and abilities, allowing new behaviours. And also improved communication. It allows people to reflect on their own communication, and it allows them, therefore, to connect better and gain credibility in their own role as a teacher. So these are the kinds of answers. It'll be interesting for you to consider how that matches up to yours. And again, at any time, you can pause and make a note of anything that has struck you in anything I've said or anything that you've been thinking while we've been talking. Pause. So what is and what is not coaching? So there is a coaching mentoring spectrum, and we will talk a little bit about that, a little activity for you there, and we're going to inquire into that area now. So the coaching mentoring spectrum, you'll see here aspects of your behaviours as a leader that you'll be using every day, every one of them. None of them are wrong, but what is important here is looking at non-directive, more directive and non-directive approaches. And in coaching approaches, that's quite important. So in your journal, on your notebook, the paper, take a few minutes to note which modes or which approaches you consider to be non-directive. And that's more at the coaching end of things. And which are more directive, which would be to do with mentoring, to do with other aspects of leadership. So 2 things to ask you: make a note of those, and a challenge. Can you put them in a continuum from non-directive coaching approaches all the way along to more directive approaches? We'll pause now for you to do that. So here's the answer that we prepared earlier. We'll be interested to see how that matches up to what you yourself have written down. So we're asking you, first of all, to compare the model that you've come up with this one. Have a look at the similarities and the differences in terms of how you've organised it, of non-directive to directive. And ask you now to have a reflection on where you're most comfortable in all of these approaches, where you might need to focus more if you are developing coaching approaches, and where you feel that you've got real strengths. We've put in the image of coaching and therapy because quite often we're asked, where do coaching and mentoring fit with the kind of therapy meetings and coaching that people have? And this summarises quite nicely that in coaching, you're very much looking to the future. In therapy, that's part of it, but it's often based on past experiences and exploring that in greater depth with very, very skilled and qualified professionals. In coaching, focusing on how we achieve goals that we set ourselves or that have been set for us, and exploring courses of action. You may wish to pause now and just take a moment to compare your model and what you wrote to our coaching spectrum. Next slide. I wonder if in that you've been thinking to yourself or writing that that desperation that you have to tell someone an answer. Quite often you feel it's so obvious. You're going to be working with teachers where they may well bring up areas that you've faced, that you've resolved, that you've managed that. And the challenge for you is to know when absolutely it's the right thing to actually say, look, this is a yes, no answer. This is what you need to do. But how often is it that you're actually answering to how you would fix that, how you would solve that, how you would offer a solution to that, rather than the person you're working with? So we'll talk a little bit throughout this about coaching to the person's map of the world, not your own map of the world. It's a brilliant quote we often find, and people tend to like this because they recognize that often when you're busy, this seems the quickest thing to do. You might want to print it off and put it on your wall as a reminder. So the fatal attraction of being a fixer, quite a popular quote for our colleagues that we work with. So we're going to go on now to offer you a really useful clip on the 3 core coaching skills. We're not suggesting for a moment that coaching is simple, and certainly when you watch this clip, we're always really pleased to see that it says that it's a lifelong process to become a coach. But to develop coaching skills and coaching approaches is something that just grows as you get more experienced. This clip is only between 3 and 4 minutes long. It is quite straightforward and has some really tremendous ways of thinking about being a good coach. Now, we offer you also the visible thinking or visible learning tool of Connect, Extend and Challenge, if you wish to record your thinking and your questions. You may want to watch the clip first and then do it again, only 3.5 minutes, and then record. How do these ideas connect to what I already know? I'm comfortable with that. Yes, I knew that. Then extend. What new ideas did I pick up there that really pushed my thinking in a new direction? Kind of knew that, but that's a new way of looking at it. And challenge is what is quite clearly something that I've not thought about and that I've got a lot more work to do on that one. So we'd encourage you now to pause the clip, pause the webinar and play the video, and we'll come back together once you've done that. So hopefully you found the 3 core coaching skills useful. I'd recommend that you may want to return to that once you've actually had conversations, and it's not something that you can watch too often. Every time I watch it, I hear something different. I think differently about an aspect of what has been discussed. And remember, the main points of this are to listen like a coach, think like a coach, and speak like a coach. And this is very much pertinent to coaching approaches, as well as being a qualified coach. This is about how to carry out a really useful conversation, a productive conversation with colleagues. So the 3 elements of effective coaching, our coaching programs, are really an interesting aspect of this, because many people think of coaching as the GROW model. And it's important to see it as much more than that. Coaching, you can see the orange circle there, is about the arrangements, it's the models, whether it's coaching, whether it's the GROW model or whether it's RIGAR or different kinds of mnemonics that people develop to get themselves through a coaching conversation. GROW is the model that we will look at later on, but the process is the smallest circle there, but a really important one. Confidentiality, how we are, how we arrange things, important. Then you get the green circle, slightly bigger, the coaching skills, questioning, silence, very important skill. So listening, questioning, how we are there in relation to our own skills. And these are skills that we can develop and that will grow as we have more conversations with colleagues. What's interesting is it's the blue circle that is the largest circle there. And that is fascinating for us because that is all about being present. It's about listening. It's about holding silence. It's about suspending judgment. A very difficult thing to do when you're with colleagues, and you may well quite naturally be sitting thinking, oh my goodness, that's not the best way to have gone about this, or to be judging behaviours or a situation. And yet, judgment is a really important survival skill for human beings. It's not that you are going to get rid of judgment in coaching, but what you need to do is to flip it into curiosity. So instead of being judging, you note yourself feeling and thinking those very natural things about what you're hearing, and you say, no, I need to move to, what is it that's led to this? I wonder how I could find out more about this. How could I help this? And that way of being is something that we would say is highly important. And also importantly, how you create a sense of rapport with the person so that you're coaching to their map of the world and not yours. So quite an interesting model to look at, and one that we've certainly found quite helpful in our programs. So thinking about how you coach to a person's map of the world, the iceberg metaphor can be very, very helpful, because too often we act on what we see above the line and what we think we hear in working with others. And yet all the literature and all our experience, everything that's written about coaching and mentoring emphasizes that long-term sustainable change comes from under the surface. People's values, people's motivations, their sense of self-worth or lack of, and their own self-awareness. And our skills in supporting people to surface this in order to move forward and get different perspectives is often through our silence, not in offering solutions, just listening, the rapport that we've created, that suspending judgment that we've talked about, flipping to curiosity. And actually what we're doing is demonstrating unconditional positive regard. Now, some people like one iceberg better than the other, but both of them illustrate what helps us to see under the surface for people, to see what's going on. And it does, again, help us to coach to people's own map of the world. It may be that you wish to pause here and record your thinking on this. Some people have actually made their own iceberg with what's going on for them. And even just maybe a little list of questions you're thinking about it at this stage. We would invite you to pause if you like. And if not, we'll move on. So now we're going to take a few minutes to reflect on the benefits and challenges for you in improving and deepening your listening as a coach and a mentor in coaching approaches and working with others. And we always think this image is quite a nice one about the reciprocal side of that. So, coaching skills. This is one for you to consider as we go. How well do you listen in conversation with others? Here's a list of approaches, and they are in an order, starting with surface, cosmetic listening. Yeah, I'm listening, but I'm thinking my own thoughts. I'm wondering when you're going to stop talking so that I can actually tell you what I think. And then going into conversational listening, very slightly deeper. I'm actually really engaged in this conversation. I'm listening, I'm talking, but I'm also kind of thinking quite a lot. And it might not just be about what I'm hearing. And then going deeper into this third level, active listening. We talk about active listening a lot in teaching. I'm very focused on what you're saying. That's good. I'm recording facts. I'm paying attention. And as you'll see in the slide we'll do in a moment, it's in coaching and mentoring, you're trying to get a bit deeper than that. And then we come to the deep listening. I'm more focused on you than me. I'm getting a better sense of who you are now. So deep listening is really the beginning of the process of coaching and mentoring. Now here's a challenge. Take a few minutes to be really honest with yourself, just thinking about your everyday conversations with people, whether it's at work, at home, whether it's when someone sort of brings a bit of an issue to you. Where are you most comfortable? Where do you tend to go? And are you able to say, most times it's this, sometimes it's that, rarely it's this? Some people also manage to go as far as a percentage. We're inviting you to pause now and have a think about that, where you are right now in your listening. Well, hope that was useful to you, because we're going to move on further and we're going to think about the deeper skills of listening in coaching conversations. And you'll see the really important image there, empathy. You can see, I hear you, I connect with you, I'm present. You can see in the wordle heart. If you have a look, you can see listening. There's all sorts of words in there. It's a really strong image for what it is you're trying to achieve in the coaching conversations. So let's move on and have a look then at the deeper skills of listening. So the first one after we left it at deep listening, attending. So I'm giving full, undivided attention, including appropriate non-verbal signals that the coach is interested in what the coachee has to say or your colleague has to say. You're not looking at your watch, you're not looking over their shoulder, you're not drumming on the table if you're on a telephone conversation. Your full, undivided attention. Accurate listening. Because I've been attending and giving you my full, undivided attention, I am now able to reflect back the content of what you've said. Not every word, but by paraphrasing, by saying, am I hearing? Have I got this right? And you are able to reflect back the spirit as well as the actual words of your colleague. And the deeper and maybe deepest one here is empathetic listening. I'm listening not just to the words that are spoken, but also to the feelings being conveyed. I'm getting a real sense that some of the words that you're saying are a bit disconnected from what I'm feeling that is coming across. And that's something that you will have picked up in the clip. It's where the words and the music not going together. And that requires an absolute 100% focus on your colleague, on your coachee. And if you remember that in the clip, it was talking about being completely in service of the coachee, not about yourself, not thinking what you think about the situation, but total concentration on the coachee. Quite a challenge. I'm going to give you a few moments to have a think about where you are on those. How often do you use that level of listening? In what situations and how successfully? What areas might you have to really do some work on? And can I just reassure you that I think we all have to do work on this one, because as the clip said, it's a lifelong endeavor becoming a coach. So I'll give you a few moments. You can pause, have a think about that. You can give yourself a scoring if you like, and we'll meet back in a few moments. So welcome back. And now just take a few moments to record in your journal What strikes you about this deeper mode of listening? And what do you need to improve or change in your behaviours, in your listening, in order to enable others? Just pause the recording and we'll see you back in a moment. Well, hope that was useful to you and you've got lots of questions for yourself. You've set yourself some challenges. I would certainly encourage you, again, as I said before, that this is a lifelong endeavour and it is a step. And I think often it is 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, but you're learning all the time as a coach. And every situation that you encounter and you practice these skills, you go that little step further on. So we're going to look at one of the bubbles, which was the coaching process. And as I said earlier, we are going to use the GROW model. Often the GROW model is the one that people start with. Because it's memorable, it's easily memorable to know the G, the R, the O, the W. And it does help to guide the coachee, guide yourself as well, through a conversation from establishing a goal, what they want to achieve, to a planned action. And what we're going to do is look at some model questions in the GROW process. And also invite you to think about an issue you might have yourself at the moment that you could practice some of those skills on before you start unleashing them on your colleague or your coachee. So you may want to take a photograph of that, but you've obviously got the presentation there as well. So the goal, the reality, the options, and what will you do about it? What action will you take? So you're going from the goal straight through and not leaving people in the middle of an analysis of all the issues, but taking them and not leaving them until there is an action agreed. And that can happen in a fairly short time. The GROW model is very effective. So let's look at these questions. They are sample questions. They're not questions that you absolutely have to use, but they do illustrate the type of questions under each stage of goal, reality, options, and will. So under the goal, what do you want to achieve is the question that is often asked. What we've found is that asking the question sometimes to start with, what's on your mind, is very effective. What do you want to achieve can kind of take people to thinking of something too big. What's on your mind? What's bugging you right now? And then the second part, which is called the AWE question, the AWE, and what else, is critical because people very rarely in the goal setting part of this come up with what the real issue is and asking, and what else, and what else, and what else. Sometimes you can feel in that situation a bit silly, but actually you'll be really surprised by what that brings out. If you do it for yourself, you might feel even sillier, but actually think, now is that really what it is? What else is bothering me? What else is the issue? What's the real issue? And so those questions for the goal, what's in your mind? What do you want to achieve? Absolutely critical. And the reality, so where are you right now? Where am I right now? What resources are there to help me? And sometimes people might tell you I have no resources, and it's where the and what else can help again. What are the obstacles? Usually people will tell you far more obstacles than the resources. So just by asking questions around that and raising people's awareness of the kind of support there is, and your fantastic experience in this is what is going to help other people by your questioning rather than your solutions. Which can you change? And what options therefore are open to you right now? And again, your AWE question, and what else? And what else? The last one, the will, some people call it the wrap up for W, so don't be put off if you see that. The W can be will, what will you do? But the wrap up is also the idea that you have a conversation and you do get to a point of wrapping it up, how will you know that you've been successful? Even if it's a tiny step, how will I know that you've been successful? What will you be able to tell me that you have done, or that you have said, or the behavior has changed? And so these questions are very, very helpful for you. So here's your challenge. In your journal, think of an itch that you want to scratch, a current challenge that you face yourself. It can be in your life. It does not have to be in school, because this is about you beginning to grow, literally, the questions that you can ask that can really help other people to open up their thinking, to see new perspectives, to raise their motivation and to be encouraged. So using the 4 stages of grow, use some of the questions there to enable yourself to move forward. If you're stuck with something, what questions would help you to get unstuck? And most importantly, can you get to a point of a will statement for yourself? What will statement might you reach yourself? So pause now and think, how can I work through this to practice my coaching skills? So hopefully you found an issue that you can think about. It's not the easiest thing in the world to get yourself through this, but it actually does help you in a safe environment. If not, you could try a partner, but I wouldn't always recommend that. It might actually end up in an argument rather than a coaching process. But I'm going to pass back to Louise at the moment to say, this is only the beginning, but hopefully by going over this maybe a couple of times, then it's going to help you. So Louise, would you like to take us on to what's next?
Yeah, thank you so much, Yvonne, and thank you for such a comprehensive webinar there. There's so much learning in there, and some of you, might have gone through it quite quickly. Some of you may well have taken, a good couple of hours, and it's also something that you can go back to. So, if you need a refresher about some questions for the GROW model, or, any of the slides that Yvonne has shared, they're there for you to use. And on this slide here, Yvonne has mentioned the online learning resource. So we also have our professional learning activities there for you, and there are several around coaching. And you'll also see in module 2 of the Middle Leaders Leading Change program, one of the chapters in module 2 is around coaching as well. So it's all there to support your professional learning. So hopefully by now, as I said at the beginning, you'll have been onboarded with Know You More. You'll have filled in your profile, and you'll be ready to be matched to a coachee. And part of the conversation we'll be having with yourselves and Know You More is how long the sessions will be with your coachee. So we'd recommend that they're going to be sort of quite short sessions initially. And again, that's something we can iron out before you actually start your coaching. So obviously it will be online coaching or possibly telephone. So a lot of the things Yvonne mentioned there about listening and about your body and language actually become even more important, because you're not sitting, with somebody. It will be somebody that you don't know. And again, for coaching, we believe that actually that can be really powerful, because you don't go in knowing any of the background about somebody. So it can be really pure coaching. And as Yvonne said, there will be coaching in there, coaching type questions, but also mentoring. You may well have more experience than the person that you're coaching. For example, you may well be, an experienced teacher of maths in a high school and be coaching somebody who's just beginning their career. So, it's your judgment as to whether you offer resources, offer advice, and so on. And absolutely, as a mentor, we would encourage that. So, it's really up to you. whether you move sort of from coaching to mentoring, or you can use everything in one conversation. But you know, really, we leave that up to you. And I just want to say a huge thank you. This is you know, this is a sort of national part of the recovery process, you know, as we move forward. So your support with our teachers who are sort of newer in their career is absolutely vital. And, you know, we're just delighted that you can find the time to take part in this. So thank you very much. And we'll leave you there. And as I said, just please feel free to sort of revisit this as and when. Thank you. Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.